This is Sandra Birchmore, 23 years old, 3 months pregnant. This surveillance footage was taken on February 1st, 2021 at 5:46 p.m. She's walking into her apartment building after clearing snow off her car. She's getting ready for the next morning, for an OB/GYN appointment, for a future she would never see. Earlier that day, Sandra had been texting the father of her baby. His name is Matthew Farwell, 35-year-old Stoughton Police Officer. He told her he was coming over that night. At 9:27 p.m., a man enters the building wearing a mask. He knows the door code and walks straight to the elevator. Investigators identified him as Matthew Farwell. 29 minutes later, he exits the building. Alone. Sandra never does. For 3 years, authorities called it suicide. Then the FBI uncovered evidence investigators were never meant to find. 33,000 deleted messages, preserved through cloud syncing on her laptop.
I regret, ma'am, that I have to tell you that Sandra is deceased.
Oh my God.
I'm very sorry for your loss.
It's true. I'm so happy to be pregnant.
Sandra Birchmore was born in May 1997. She grew up in Stoughton, Massachusetts. Her mother, Denise, raised her alone. Denise had a chronic illness, so Sandra spent much of her childhood taking care of her. Her grandmother stepped in to help. But Sandra's childhood wasn't easy. She was never really brought up like a child. She was a caretaker before she learned to be a kid. Yet, Sandra had a dream. She wanted to serve her community. She wanted to be a police officer. In March 2010, when she was 12 years old, Sandra applied to join the Stoughton Police Explorers Program, a junior police academy for teenagers interested in law enforcement careers. Programs like this are supposed to introduce teens to law enforcement in a safe, structured environment. In Stoughton, it became something else. She was accepted, and in the spring of 2010, she started attending meetings. Among the instructors were 2 brothers, Matthew and William Farwell. They'd been explorers themselves as teenagers. Now they were coming back as volunteers to mentor the next generation. Matthew Farwell had just become a police officer in Wellesley. In his mid-20s, tall and confident, he was eager to transfer back to his hometown department in Stoughton. Sandra was 13 when she first met him through the program. At first, it seemed innocent enough. He was her instructor. He helped her with homework. They'd meet at the library. Other explorers saw them together. Nobody thought twice about it. But Farwell wasn't mentoring Sandra. He was grooming her. In October 2012, he sent her a friend request on Facebook. They started messaging. And by April 2013, Farwell, then 27, had begun an inappropriate relationship with Sandra. She was still just 15. The age of consent in Massachusetts is 16. Sandra was below that age. Under state law, what happened constituted a serious felony. Yet it didn't stop. The inappropriate relationship continued. They'd meet up in his police vehicles. They'd meet at her house. Court documents describe how he introduced violent elements into their encounters. He'd ask her to engage in disturbing role-play scenarios. And after each encounter, he'd tell her the same thing. Delete the messages. Clear the texts. Don't tell anyone. Sandra did delete them from her phone. But what Farwell didn't know was that every message was syncing to her MacBook. And 3 years later, the FBI would find all 33,000 of them. In May 2013, 1 month after the relationship began, he got married. But he didn't stop seeing Sandra. He kept coming back, for years. Sandra believed she was special. She believed they had a relationship. She believed he cared about her. But she was being exploited by someone who controlled her. In 2016, Sandra's life shattered. Her mother, Denise, passed away from a stroke on May 18. Sandra had just turned 19 a few days earlier. 1 month later, on June 24, her grandmother Claire passed away. Sandra had lost the two women who raised her within 6 weeks. She was alone, and Farwell was still there. The digital trail showed he was still messaging her, still meeting up with her. By 2020, Sandra had moved to Canton. She was working as a teacher's aide at East Elementary School, taking nursing classes at Massasoit Community College, trying to build a future. And she wanted a family. She wanted a baby. Messages recovered from 2020 show Sandra asked Farwell to get her pregnant. She sent him her ovulation schedule. They planned when to meet based on when she'd be most fertile. He agreed. They made a deal, one attempt to conceive a child, no strings attached. At least, that's how he framed it. But then Sandra changed the terms. She wanted him to be involved. She wanted him to sign the birth certificate. She wanted him to be a father. His response was furious. "You have threatened me from the word go," he texted her. "If I didn't do and give you what you wanted, you would ruin me. I made a deal with you, and you changed the terms at every turn." Here's the problem Farwell had. He was married. He had 2 kids at home. His wife was 8 months pregnant with their 3rd child. Sandra's pregnancy wasn't a blessing to him. It was a scandal that could end his career. Sandra wasn't staying quiet anymore. She was demanding things, that he be there when she went into labor, that he support the child. By December 2020, Sandra was about 3 months pregnant. She was excited, buying baby clothes, picking out names, telling her coworkers at the elementary school. She had big plans. She told a few people that Farwell was the father, that he'd be involved, but that his wife couldn't know. He wasn't happy. He accused her of sleeping with other men and said he didn't believe the baby was his. He told her she was truly the worst person on the face of the earth. Then, in late January 2021, something happened that made him panic. A friend of Sandra's called the Stoughton Police Department, mentioning the relationship and raising concerns about its nature. This was the first time on record that someone outside their inner circle raised the alarm to law enforcement. When Farwell found out, he sent Sandra angry text messages. A few days later, approximately 1 week before Sandra's death, he visited her apartment. He asked for a spare key. He told her to keep it a secret. People Sandra confided in began hearing disturbing reports. Friends and her therapist heard the same warnings: headlocks, shoving, being pushed to the ground. Once, while she was pregnant, witnesses say Sandra reported that Farwell held her in a headlock and told her he wished she were dead. Sandra's therapist screened her for depression and concerning thoughts just days before she died. The therapist found no signs of either. On February 1st, 2021, he texted Sandra. He said he was coming over that night. He said they needed to talk. Sandra left the door unlocked for him. Monday morning started normal, but by midday the weather turned. A massive blizzard was barreling toward Massachusetts. Heavy snow, high winds. Schools started letting kids out early. At East Elementary School in Canton, they dismissed students around 12:30 p.m. Sandra went home early. She had the afternoon free. When she got home, she did laundry, put clothes in the washer and dryer. At 5:46 p.m., another camera catches her in the lobby holding a snow brush. She'd just finished clearing off her car. At 9:08 p.m., Farwell texts her. He's on his way. At 9:27 p.m., a man enters the building. He's wearing a blue face mask. Not unusual for February 2021. COVID restrictions are still in effect. But Farwell was known for resisting mask mandates. He didn't wear them. Except on this night, during a blizzard, when his wife was at the hospital. when most people were home and the streets were empty. The surveillance footage shows him entering at 9:27 p.m. 29 minutes later, at 9:56 p.m., he leaves. Inside that apartment, during those 29 minutes, Sandra Birchmore died. Sandra's body showed injuries to her neck consistent with asphyxiation. The medical evidence pointed to manual force. A broken necklace, a gold chain with a pink flamingo charm, was found on the bedroom floor, ripped off during what investigators describe as a struggle. According to the federal indictment, he didn't just kill her, he staged the scene to make it appear self-inflicted. The arrangement was deliberate. It was designed to mislead investigators into ruling her death a suicide. But forensic evidence later contradicted that conclusion. On February 4th, 2021, Sandra didn't show up for work at East Elementary School. Her coworkers were concerned. This wasn't like Sandra. When she didn't answer her phone, they called the police and requested a wellness check. Canton police officers went to her apartment. When they entered, they found her body. The scene appeared staged. Items had been arranged. Her phone lay on the floor near her hand. Wet clothes were still in a washing machine, dry clothes in the dryer. She'd been in the middle of doing laundry when he arrived. The officers called it in. In May 2021, the state medical examiner ruled Sandra's death self-inflicted. The Massachusetts State Police investigated and found no evidence of foul play. Case closed, or so they thought. Sandra's family didn't believe it. They knew her. They knew she was excited about the baby. This wasn't who she was. But the police weren't listening. Farwell was interviewed by state police. He admitted he'd been at Sandra's apartment on February 1st, said they'd had a pretty nasty argument, and that he'd left around 9:30 p.m., that she'd been hospitalized for mental illness multiple times, that she was unstable. Her medical records and those who knew her strongly dispute those claims, yet the investigators believed him. Shortly after Sandra's death, the Stoughton Police Department launched an internal investigation into Farwell's relationship with Sandra, along with his twin brother William's relationship with her, and their supervisor Robert Devine's relationship with her. 18 months later, in September 2022, Stoughton Police Chief Donna McNamara released the results. The internal affairs report was damning. Farwell had groomed and engaged in an inappropriate relationship with Sandra from the time she was a teenager. His twin brother, William, he'd had inappropriate physical encounters with her too, exchanging explicit messages while on duty. Their supervisor, Robert Devine, had engaged in intimate encounters with Sandra in 2020, also while on duty. Matthew and William Farwell both resigned from the department. Robert Devine retired. Still, no criminal charges. The official ruling stood: self-inflicted death. Sandra's family wasn't giving up. In December 2022, her estate filed a wrongful death lawsuit naming Matthew Farwell, William Farwell, Robert Devine, and the town of Stoughton. The family hired Dr. Michael Baden, a prominent forensic pathologist. Baden reviewed the autopsy, and in June 2023, he issued his findings. Dr. Michael Baden concluded Sandra Birchmore's death was not self-inflicted, but a homicide. Baden found injuries consistent with manual force, not the scenario initially described by authorities. He found evidence of a struggle. He found that the scene had been staged. The media started paying attention. Investigative journalists dug into the case. Podcasters covered it. The pressure mounted. And finally, the FBI got involved. The FBI reopened the investigation and reviewed all the evidence state police had collected. What they found changed everything. Sandra's MacBook. On that laptop were over 33,000 messages between Sandra and Farwell in the 14 months before her death. The messages revealed he'd told her to delete their texts. He thought they were gone, but the messages had been syncing automatically to her laptop. Agents read them all. The messages revealed a progression from grooming to control to rage, and a clear motive. Sandra had become a threat. She was pregnant, demanding he take responsibility, threatening to expose him. On August 28, 2024, a federal grand jury indicted Matthew Farwell on charges of murder. Acting U.S. Attorney Joshua Levy held a press conference.
When it became clear to Mr. Farwell that he could no longer control Sandra Birchmore, he allegedly silenced her.
Farwell was arrested. He has pleaded not guilty and maintains
a former Stoughton
his
police
innocence.
officer arrested in Revere today. Federal prosecutors accusing him of killing a young woman who claimed to be carrying his child.
Her death was originally ruled a suicide.
In October 2025, the indictment was expanded to include another charge, the death of Sandra's unborn child. The superseding indictment stated that at the time of her death, Sandra was carrying an unborn male child whose gestational age was between 8 and 10 weeks. This marked the first time authorities identified the gender of the fetus. Farwell is now facing federal murder charges and remains in custody, awaiting trial. If convicted, he faces life in prison without parole. But here's the final twist. After the indictment, investigators ran DNA tests on the fetus. The baby Sandra was carrying, the baby authorities say Farwell ended her life over, wasn't his. If the allegations are proven true, he ended her life to cover up a pregnancy that wasn't even his. All of it for nothing. Farwell has not been convicted yet. He's sitting in a detention facility in Rhode Island awaiting trial. The trial is scheduled to begin on October 5, 2026, in federal court in Boston. Judge Denise Casper will preside. In December 2025, federal authorities made a decision. They announced they would not seek the death penalty. If convicted, Farwell will face life in prison without parole. The charge he's facing, killing a witness, is eligible for the death penalty under federal law, but the Department of Justice officially filed a notice of intent not to seek it. Sandra's cousin, Barbara Wright, supports that decision. She doesn't believe in the death penalty and thinks if he's convicted, he should spend the rest of his life behind bars. Yet there's still work to do. Barbara Wright and Sandra's family aren't just focused on Matthew Farwell. They want accountability for the other men accused of misconduct involving Sandra. And then there's Norfolk District Attorney Michael Morrissey. He investigated Sandra's death in 2021 and concluded it was self-inflicted. He never brought charges. The family believes Morrissey failed Sandra. They believe he protected the police instead of seeking justice for her, and they've been vocal about that criticism. In January 2026, amid intense public criticism over the Sandra Birchmore case, yet Farwell's legal team isn't giving up without a fight. In November 2025, his lawyers filed a motion to move the trial out of Massachusetts. 2 months later, on January 21, 2026, there was a hearing. Farwell appeared in court for the first time since his arrest. His attorney, Kimberly Stevens, made the case for moving the trial, arguing the media coverage had created a, quote, widespread public misbelief about her client. Federal prosecutors responded, saying the coverage was factual reporting on the allegations, not prejudicial. Judge Denise Casper took the matter under advisement. On January 24, 2026, she issued her ruling. Judge Casper rejected the motion, ruling the trial will stay in Massachusetts. In her written decision, she stated that Farwell has not met the high burden of demonstrating that pretrial publicity would prevent him from receiving a fair trial in this district. The judge noted that much of the media coverage simply reports the government's allegations and includes his denials. That's not prejudicial, she wrote. That's journalism. Sandra's family was relieved. They want the trial to happen where the crime occurred, where Sandra lived, where she died. Barbara Wright said after the ruling, "We're ready to go. It's time to get justice for Sandra and her baby." Sandra's case isn't isolated. Across the country, police youth programs have faced similar allegations: mentors abusing power, departments closing ranks, and victims left unprotected. Her story is more than a tragedy. It's a warning, a call to hold systems accountable, to stop confusing authority with immunity. Sandra Birchmore didn't get the future she deserved, but her fight and her voice are changing something.